Alright, welcome back guys. Another question and answer series. We will be throwing these up frequently on Instagram, and basically how it goes is I will propose a Q&A, you guys throw in your questions, and then Brian and myself, we pick the ones that we think will be most useful to the majority of you guys. Questions that, again, not only will help a lot of people, but that we hear quite often or tend to be trending.
Yeah.
So, Brian Miner, Alberto Nunez. Ready?
All right. Yeah. So we picked, I think, a total of 8. We'll see kind of how far we get. Might throw a couple extra in if we're keeping pace. So first one, D Hodges Fitness. If you're transitioning from a contest prep to a powerlifting / strength split, how do you assess the appropriate amount of volume and frequency to start? Assuming your previous split was a bro split, training each body part once per week. In other words, how do you incorporate accumulation blocks post-contest prep? I think first, you sort of alluded to just once a week frequency. So I think coming out of a show, you kind of want to see what you can get away with just from having extra substrate around. And I wouldn't jump into training. You can still train with an accumulation block and not be training with like a 3-time-a-week frequency. So maybe bump it up to 2. And one progression scheme that I kind of like to use post contest is just increasing repetitions, because you're just gonna be getting stronger, and it's just the kind of the smallest way to kind of turn that knob up on volume and keep progressing without like large chunks of 10 to 15 extra reps by adding a set too prematurely. And I think most people would probably be pretty surprised how far they can kind of progress just by coming out of a show without putting the foot on the gas full throttle.
Yeah, I think that's a big issue. Is people finish off their season, they're very motivated to make those improvements, to get back to lifting heavy, and usually that means let me add a whole bunch of new stuff in there, when, to be quite honest, just adding food, which you should be, by the way, that alone is going to make you progress quite a bit.
Definitely. So yeah, as far as like setting up, how do you incorporate an accumulation block? You could set it up where you're, say we're doing 10 reps, say you're training something twice a week, you could have kind of a heavier day, a lighter day, and then just bring the reps up each time, keep the weight the same, or you can do it, there's tons of ways to do it, but basically the point being is you want to kind of keep pushing it a little bit, but only to the degree that you need. So increase repetitions each session. If you feel like you can handle an extra set, you can do that, but always look at sort of the outcome. If you're getting stronger, then there's really nothing to do about it. Jonathan Kim, I dieted down to a pretty low level of body fat, but gained it all back and more shortly after due to uncontrollable binging. Would it be a bad idea to go back into a fat loss phase, or would it just be spinning my wheels? I'd rather not be at this level of body fat. You want to start that one?
Yeah, I think that's probably that's the hardest part of a fat loss diet, is not necessarily getting there, but what you do after. And I think just being able to maintain your weight, I think that is a skill that most physique enthusiasts don't know how to do. Most folks know how to gain weight, they know how to lose weight, but learning to chill at a certain weight is, I think, something that's pretty valuable, and that's maybe something you should do right now, and do that until you kind of have forgotten about your last dieting experience. And then I think once you've earned a fat loss phase, then it would be a good time.
Mm-hmm. And I think, what you said with the maintaining weight being a skill, I often tell people, as Americans, we're getting fatter every single year, but you look at, the average rate of gain that's leading to this obesity epidemic, and it pales in comparison to what most physique athletes can do over the span of 12 weeks. And so I think we can be very obsessive, especially coming out of a show. But just being able to, like, if you can get to the point where you can maintain your weight and not even track, that's when you've got the behavioral side down. Not that necessarily that's always going to be optimal from a body composition standpoint. I mean, it's nice having control over those variables, but just optimizing that long-term behavior is, I think, what we're suggesting you do.
Let me make sure this thing is still rolling, just in case. Okay.
Ben Graff, thoughts on working up to openers and projected second attempts 1 week out from a meet to gain confidence and momentum for intermediate powerlifters. I actually often have people do this, especially if I don't have a lot of history on them of where they stand in terms of low rep strength, or if we have a training cycle set up and we can semi-accurately estimate what their 1 rep max is, then we can sort of set what those openers would look like. And there's certainly something to be said, especially with an intermediate lifter, just having that confidence of just getting that weight on your back. I mean, there are some, very advanced powerlifters that, stay pretty sub-maximal, up until their opener at the meet itself. And so by actually going through and hitting those, I mean, as far as like being worried about recovery and everything, I think a lot of people tend to forget that, I mean, volume is a huge component of the stress that's, incurred from training. And so if you hit an opener, but you manage your back offsets or manage your rep work after that accordingly, then that's going to be fine. So
No, not much to add to that. That's a great way of approaching that. And sounds like he might be very new to this, and I think, again, for sure, being conservative as a new lifter is totally different to go up and lift on a platform versus your own gym with your own equipment. And excellent. I think.
Yeah, and not to mention it does help keep those, neurological adaptations in place. I mean, the last thing you want to do before a meet is just stop lifting, for a period of time. Like it can help some people. I mean, if it all depends on the situation. I mean, there's times where people are just really beat up, and the common practice or what's suggested of keeping intensity high and managing stress by pulling volume back, it's still very taxing on their joints. And so in times like that, you can kind of peel back the intensity a bit, but you do want to keep that, I guess, that fitness level high, and then sort of create that opening as you bring fatigue down. Next question is from Jayraykeee from Vancouver. Hey, it's Jayraykeee from Vancouver. If there were clones of me with the same macros and supplements, yet one of me ate all calories from Wunder bars, coffee crisps, glycerol, and whey protein, and the other me ate calories from chicken, rice, veggies, whey, and normal foods for a good and same amount of time, would we have the same fat and muscle mass? Serious question. And then followed up the comment with, and had the exact same training. So, I've gotten this question a lot from athletes, and I think it's kind of a flawed question to begin with, because it's never, like, on the surface I would say no, but that's because no one's really ever done that. I think going to that extreme, I mean, you have like the IFYM extremists that really pride themselves on fitting as much of that into their diet as they can, and they do get leaner. But the biggest thing for me and would be just how you feel throughout the day, and I think the effect that it would have just on stable blood sugar levels and your ability to train and optimize your performance in the gym, more than the acute effects or like the insulin response to the meal itself.
Yeah, I think more so from a well-being standpoint and a health standpoint. I think sometimes bodybuilders are too quick to think that just about anything they do is going to affect body composition, when that's not necessarily the case. There was a story back a few years ago, it was a natural bodybuilding magazine, but some guy actually wrote in about him inhaling something in his garage that basically was, I guess, toxic or what have you. But his first concern as soon as he did that is he wrote in and he's like, is this going to affect my muscle mass? And it's like, let's worry about the other things it might do. So it's kind of the same thing with this question.
In terms of actual body composition, I think it would boil down more. I would side with the bro on this one, but I think it would be more having to do with just performing better in the gym more than anything. But I don't know anybody who's
Is she
really.
natural?
It says she takes the glycerol here, so I'm not totally sure.
Natural enough. And as a natural athlete, you definitely are going to depend on your performance more than anything else to get you your results. And you need to feel good. And I think for that, right foods, right amounts, right time to some degree.